All right, all right. So I'm back, y'all. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. For those of you who hung out there with us, thank you for being here. As you know, we had some issues with our stream. So this is our second attempt at getting that. Tonight we're talking about health, right? The war for your health. There are so many things that are going on in our lives, so many places where we find ourselves embattled, if you will. And one of those places is when we talk about our health. We have been here on the show, I have been, talking about rebuilding ourselves, designing a new version of ourselves, having a positive mindset, letting go of things that are keeping us back. And of course, this past series that we did was how to live life from the center, how to live a balanced life. And I see that that we are moving right now, so I'm glad that you hung out there, hung in here with us. Thank you for coming back through and hanging out with us. Dean, are you up and running? Yes. Dean Cloud said, are you up and running? We are up and running right now. Thank you for being there. That's what I love about going live, that you have the opportunity to problem solve in real time. So we did that. And I'm not sure, I had to reboot everything. So I rebooted the modem. At first I was trying to get back to the same stream, but I couldn't. I think the delay between getting back on was too much. And so we ended up having to start a new stream. So thank you all for hopping over and hanging out here with us. G. Albert, thank you if you're still out there. And of course, Dean, thank you for coming through. As I started saying earlier, I wanted to make sure that you are making yourself or building up yourself by using the things that we have done, that I've done all here on the channel. Starting out with our YouTube channel, make sure you get there and go through the series, all the series that we've done, Mastering Diabetes and so forth. Okay, so health. So in all the things that we do, all of the processes that I talk about, all of the personal growth and development, all of the mindset things that we do, those are all great. They are terrific. They are wonderful. And here on the channel, I want you to engage actively in doing all the things that I talk about. One of the places where we want to make sure that we are living from the center is according to our health, right? We want to make sure, because if we're not healthy, those things that we talk about almost don't make sense and don't matter. We put those on the back burner, because if you're in pain all the time, you're not really thinking about positive mindset, or it's hard to think about it. If you have a chronic abdominal pain, if you have nausea, if you're feeling lightheaded, dizzy, feeling woozy all the time, can't breathe, then it's hard to focus on the things that we've been talking about. And so that's why I don't just focus on physical health or mental health or emotional health or personal development or career development or family relationships or personal relationships or family of origin. We don't just spend time talking about one thing, because that's the idea of living from the center. That's the idea of being balanced, because if you're not balanced, then everything kind of falls apart. And part of the balance that we have to talk about, part of the components, one of the things that we have to talk about, one of the facets we have to talk about is our health. And right now, there is a war going on for our health. Every time we turn, we're finding some new, I don't want to say finding a new disease, but yeah, there's a new disease, there's a new condition, there's a new this, there's a new that, right? And if we're not careful, it can become this mountain that we're seemingly trying to climb. And tonight we're going to spend some time kind of using diabetes as an example of this, but talking about health in general. And so what I want you to do is, number one, if you remember, I told the story back in the fall. I told the story back not in the fall, sorry, in the spring, about me going whitewater rafting. And if you go back and watch some of those, but in a nutshell, I'm on this raft with a bunch of people. These aren't the folks I went with. This is just a picture, right? And this is how we all started out, y'all. Everybody's smiling and we're just digging in. And the guy in the back, he's like, "Hey, let's do it. Dig in, row, right? Stroke, row. And we're doing it. We're having a good time. It's me, my wife, my son. And there are probably, we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other people, 4 or 5 other people on the raft. And then, of course, the guy in the back, and he's the one kind of directing. He's maneuvering, he's guiding, and he's steering. And we go over these rapids, and we get down into a place where it's kind of swirling. If you've been whitewater rafting, you understand what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, think about a little, kind of a little whirlpool, right? And so we're between these two rapids, and in order to get out of this whirlpool, we've got to go uphill, kind of, over the rapids before we get out of where we are. And so as we're doing that, as we're digging in, as we're trying, the guy's like, row, right? And so we go up and we fall back down into the whirlpool. We go up and we fall back and down into the whirlpool. And then the unthinkable happens, right? Yours truly, me, right? I'm sitting in the back, well, not in the back. I was on the left side of the raft. And I am leaning out because the raft is kind of giving us some trouble. And I fell out. And I grabbed on to the perimeter rope, which is what they tell you. Don't grab onto it. And what I didn't realize was, because I was at the kind of the front of the raft, when I grabbed onto the perimeter rope, the raft is moving faster than me, right? And so what do you think happens? Right, the raft comes over top of me and I'm on the bottom. I'm still holding on, but there's no air under there. There's just water, and I'm holding my breath. And when I couldn't breathe anymore, when I couldn't hold my breath anymore, I shouldn't say breathe. I couldn't breathe, but I couldn't hold my breath anymore. I had to let go. And when I let go, the rapids took me, okay? And I'm down and I'm going. And so in this process of talking about diabetes, about talking about health, it may seem like we are on those rapids and we're under the raft and we can't breathe and everything is coming at us. And that's why we did the series that's called Let Go, right? The Art of Letting Go. And so what I tell people is, I want you to breathe. I want you to breathe. There's a lot that we're going to talk about when we talk about health. But the first thing is to take a big breath. In and out. Because if we don't, it can appear to be overwhelming. And yes, I survived. I survived the rapids. But I learned so much. During that process. And a part of that is what I shared in that series that we did called The Art of Letting Go. So if you have not done so, I want you to go back. I want you to kind of look at those and make sure that you that you go through that series. And it may be one of those where you get some friends, some family together and go through that series called The Art of Letting Go. There's some more things that I'm going to share in the future that I learned from that series, but not right now, right? So go back and watch it. Okay. So breathe. In the news, y'all. In the news, diabetes is on the rise. And I say diabetes because we're using diabetes as the prototypic prototypic disease process. It's on the rise. In fact, if you believe the studies, there are now 37, actually more than 37, because this study came out, this is maybe a year or two old, to 37.3 million people in the U.S., y'all, in the United States, that have diabetes. And about 430, between 430 and 460 million people around the world that struggle with diabetes. That's almost 500 million, right? People that struggle with diabetes. And it is getting more rampant. There is no respect of persons. It's not like this person has it and then maybe that person, but it's starting to become, and we've not used the word yet. We've not used that word pandemic. But people who have diabetes, 2 times more likely to die from diabetes, right? 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes, 2.5 times more likely to be hospitalized. This is people who have diabetes, and then let me go back and add their cardiovascular disease. This is what we're talking about here. 3.2 times more likely to be diagnosed with end-stage renal disease. These are people with diabetes. Prediabetes is that state where people are having higher blood sugars, but they're not quite diagnosed with diabetes. So the blood sugars are higher, but they're not quite there, right? So 96 million people in the United States. That's 1 out of every 3, y'all. Because in the United States, there are about 300 million, right? 1 out of every 3. So let's pause there for a second. And let's make a couple of comments. When we think about modern disease, what we find is that people are no longer dying or having complications from diseases that we had years ago. So years ago, people got infected, and because we didn't have the appropriate treatment for them, then those people died from those diseases. Now in the United States and around the world, we are finding that people are more and more likely to die not from infectious causes, but from lifestyle diseases and chronic diseases. So now let's bring that here into the United States, and let's talk about chronic illness. Chronic illness in the United States. 6 in 10 adults have some chronic illness. And 4 out of every 10 persons has 2 or more. So that is not just do they have diabetes, but they have diabetes and high blood pressure, or high blood pressure and high cholesterol, or chronic kidney disease, or they suffer from obesity, or they have rheumatoid arthritis, or they have Behçet's, or they have lupus, or they have some other thing, right? The cancers. Let's add cancers in there. Alzheimer's and dementia is at an all-time high. And strokes, lung disease, all-time high. And when we think about all the disease processes that we have, a lot of it seems to be associated with lifestyle, y'all. Right? Because remember, we're not dying anymore from diseases of infection. We're dying and we're having complications of diseases that are of the modern era. Okay. Let's see. So let's see. So Dean says, well, let's go back up. G. Albert says, looks like round 3 is good too. Go hand, purple, blue, peace. Yes. Thank you. Dean said he fell out also. Yeah, you fell out of the raft. Man, that was something else. I'm telling you. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going through my head as I had the helmet on, and I was between the raft and some rocks, and so my head is going like this. And you guys, you see that right there, that scar? That's from the raft. Yeah, so down here also, my elbow, that's from all of that stuff. Well, G. Albert says, well, I see you survive. Yes, I did. I did survive. He says, I'm pre-diabetes, but on a program with the VA Move Group. So far lost. Man, congrats. Come on. Ooh. Man, G. Albert, I got to give it up for you, man. Congratulations. I love that. Okay. So, yeah, it's something that we've got to work on, y'all. So chronic disease in the United States, right? So 4 out of 10 people in the United States have 2 or more chronic illnesses. And as we think about disease processes, right, we are told that it's diet, it's our lifestyle, and it does not affect just a particular group of people. I know I flashed through those there a little quickly, right? So it's affecting everybody. So we know, and we're doing a lot of analysis, and we are coming up with algorithms, and we're plotting data, and we're looking to see what is causing all of these things. And the reason we're doing that, y'all, is because it all integrates. With all the modern technology that we have, with all the, fast cars and the technology that we use to drive self-driving cars, and we're, sending shuttles, and we're sending cars, and we're sending vehicles, and we want to colonize space, and we, all that stuff. Do you know the one place that we still continue to struggle is with health? And it is starting to now, not starting to, it's affecting our children. There's this concept that I've talked about here on this channel before. It's called epigenetics. And epigenetics is the study of how generations are affected by things that occur in their ancestry. For example, do you know that a child who is born to a mother who had gestational diabetes is predisposed to have diabetes? Yeah. So mom had prediabetes, and so the child now is predisposed. And epigenetics says, if we extrapolate this thing, right, that whatever happens to me happens to my offspring, and what happens to them happens to their offspring. So we're talking about generations down the road. If we take a woman, when a woman is born, right, we believe that all of the embryos, all the eggs that she will ever produce for her life are already formed in her as she develops, right? So when she's developing, all the eggs that are going to occur throughout her menstrual cycles, all the eggs that are going to be fertilized for her to have babies, all of those are being formed at the time when she is conceived. So all those eggs experience everything that woman experiences. So all of the joy that she has, all of the sorrow that she has, all of the pain that she has, all of the education that she has, all the disease processes, All of those things are being experienced, if you will, by those embryos that are in her womb, that are being formed. And let's take that even further. So her mother, when mom was formed, that's grandmother of those babies, all of her eggs were in her when she was formed. And so everything that occurred in her also occurred to mom, also occurred to each of those eggs, also occurred to each of those children. So epigenetics. So we're talking about generational. So as we're talking about disease processes, we're not just talking about how it affects me today. And we're not just talking about how that disease is going to impact my quality of life, my ability to succeed, my ability to have the life I want, the life I want to create, my ability to have a healthy life, but that's also affecting my children. Yeah. That's amazing. So not only are our children seeing it, right? Not only are our children, but we're also seeing that in generations down the road. So when we talk about, and sorry guys, that keeps popping up. When we talk about quality of life, we're talking about lots of different things, right? Social isolation and loneliness, disabilities, fatigue, pain, discomfort, feelings of distress, anger, hopelessness, frustration, anxiety, depression. So these are all things that people feel that are affected by their disease. If they are in pain, then they can't do the things that they used to do as freely. If they feel anxious or angry or hopeless, then they become depressed, and so they pull away, so their relationships suffer. If they're in pain and discomfort, they feel fatigue, and so they don't go out as much as they did. They don't hang out as much as they did before. And so it grows and grows and grows and grows. So there's this war for our health. And so when we talk about it, we always talk about obesity, right? We talk about obesity, right? All right, obesity nearly tripled worldwide since 1975. Approximately 2 billion adults and children are overweight. By 2030, it's estimated that 30% of the planet will be overweight. Most of the world's population lives where being overweight and obese kills more people than being underweight. 39 million children under 5 were overweight or obese in 2020. And over 340 million children or adolescents were overweight or obese in 2016. Right? And help. Everybody's saying, help me. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And, there's this big push to say, hey, it's in the genetics, right? You just have bad genetics. And there are things that affect our genetics. Of course, there are disease processes that are amplified because of genetics. For example, our disease that we're using now, type 1 diabetes. There's a genetic component and there's an environmental component. And the whole idea there is that the genetics predisposes someone, and then our environment somehow on top of that causes an insult. And in the diabetes case, their pancreas begins to die, or the cells in the pancreas, I should say the pancreas, the cells in the pancreas begin to die. They are destroyed. And so those are the cells that are making insulin. And so that person has insulin deficiency, and then ultimately they develop type 1 diabetes. So see there the genetics. So things like lupus are also in that realm. Lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, psoriasis. They're all autoimmune diseases. And autoimmune disease means that the body itself is fighting itself. And the question is, why are we developing so many more autoimmune diseases than we did before? Right? So many more autoimmune diseases than we did before. Type 2 diabetes, the same thing, right? There's a genetics component, and then there's an environmental, once again. And we believe the environmental is our lifestyle. And we're going to talk more about what that whole thing of lifestyle means here in just a minute. Let's see. G. Albert says, with the help from Ozempic prescribed by an endocrinologist, they first started me on a pill, probably Rybelsus. Oh, by the way, I had a Roux-en-Y procedure about 8 years ago, but regained and overtook my accomplishments. Yeah. So it is something that we always want to talk to people about in terms of what they're doing to manage. And let's put a pin here for a minute. And thank you for G. Albert sharing that with us. I tell people, the things that cause us to put on weight, if it's not a disease process, those things, right? And that's why let me say it a little different way. The reason I teach the things I teach is that those things are the vehicle that helps us in the process of managing disease. Most people don't have problems managing their disease because the disease process itself is difficult to manage. Because y'all, we know how to treat diabetes. We know how to treat high blood pressure and cholesterol. We are learning, right, more and more about how to treat rheumatoid arthritis and all those things. But what makes it difficult to treat these lifestyle diseases is life happens. Life happens to us. There's stress. There's illness. There's relational discord. And if we don't manage those things, when we do have procedures, for instance, Roux-en-Y, right? Then it's life can take a hold of us, and if we're not careful, we kind of pick up some weight. And now we have more and more things that we can do in helping. Ozempic, for example, Wegovy is another one, which is actually indicated for weight loss. And then Mounjaro, right, Rybelsus, all those things are medications that we use. And let me pause to say, and this is a controversial conversation, but let's do it right now. One of the things that I hear people saying all the time is that, the people who don't need Ozempic or people who don't need Mounjaro, they're taking it away from the people who have diabetes who need it. Okay, that's an argument that I hear all the time. I counter that argument, y'all. And I understand the reason for it. I understand the thought behind it. But the management of being overweight, the management of obesity, it is a process that we believe is disease-based. And so when we find a tool that works, we cannot fault people who are using the tool that's working. You guys get what I'm saying? So I understand what people are saying. We don't have enough to share with everybody, so let's just give it to the diabetics. Well, what about the disease process for the people who need it for weight? Should we just not give it to them and say, okay, you guys, we don't really care about you right now? No, that's not what we do. So the argument should not be they're taking it away from the diabetics. What we need to say is, okay, how do we get more so that we can get everybody what they need? Is GCA a part of today's? Giant cell arteritis. Giant cell arteritis is what G. Albert is talking about. Correct me if I'm believe that's what you're talking about. So giant cell arteritis is not necessarily he said, yep. Right. So it's not necessarily a direct disease that we're talking about. We're talking about diseases in general. Okay. And so we will touch on a bunch of disease processes. We'll talk about them in general. We won't talk about specific ones, about how they are affecting us and how what are some things that we need to do. Okay. So back to our thought here, right? So I want you to look at this stuff right here. I've got a book, and it's called, I think it's called Let Food Be Your Medicine or something like that. Right? Let food be your medicine. And the proponents are saying that our diet is a big component of what is causing us to be in the positions that we are in. And I'm going to say that I agree. Period. I agree that our diet has a big component in a lot of the disease processes that we have. Okay? Everybody heard me say, I agree. You got it? Okay. So now let me talk about some real. Okay? The question comes, how do we manage the diseases where we are, and how do we move forward? And the question is, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did our lifestyle predispose us to disease processes? And then the disease processes happened, and then food just occurred, right? So people liked stuff and we started just getting stuff. Or did the food change and the food led to the diseases? Come on, y'all. Come on. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? And to be honest, right, if we're really honest, now there are studies that have been done. We're not completely sure. There are correlations that we found. What is a correlation? A correlation is when two things occur, right, in whether it's close proximity or time, or in relationship to each other, but we cannot prove causality. We cannot prove that this caused that. So a lot of studies have been done that show associations, like certain foods that you eat, people who eat those types of foods tend to have X, or people who do this type of thing tend to show up in this way. That is an association. But I cannot prove that A caused B. Okay? All right. So going back to my thought. So I believe food, right? And there's so much data that's supporting that food is a big component. We think that a lot of it has to do with inflammation in our system. A lot of the diseases that we struggle with are inflammatory processes. Those autoimmune diseases, I asked the question, well, why is the body attacking itself? The body's attacking itself because it's been sensitized through an inflammatory process, an immune process, to be very vigilant about certain things. And when the body becomes very vigilant, then it sees itself as foreign. I'm going to give you an example. And this is a natural process. Okay. This is a natural process. When a woman becomes pregnant, her immune system essentially decreases. Because the body wants to bring that baby that's in her womb, the body wants to bring that baby to full development, and it wants that baby to be born. that baby is seen by the body as a foreign entity. And if the immune system was as vigilant as it normally is, then it would attack the baby and the baby would not come to term. In fact, there are cases where mom may have twins, okay? And one of those twins sensitizes mom, or I shouldn't say one of the twins, but a baby, right? Mom has a baby, and that baby sensitizes mom's body to certain factors, okay? So that if the mom sees another piece of that, some mom sees another part of that, another instance of that, then mom would attack it. And so sometimes we'll have to test mom, and then we'll have to give her medicine to help further adjust her system so that when she has a second baby, that her body doesn't attack that baby. You guys get the example already? So that's an example of a normal process that goes on, right? She's being born, but she's birthing a baby. She gets sensitized by that baby. So that if we don't do anything, when she has a second baby, potentially that baby can be in trouble. And there's some specifics. So that baby has to have the same, I don't want to give you the technical terms, but the baby has to have similar factors in their blood. Okay? But that same process can happen in general. So people who have rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or psoriasis, all of those are processes that occur because of an autoimmune issue. Okay? So that the body somehow gets sensitized, and because it's sensitized, it now attacks itself. One of the big ones that I see is the thyroid. Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It is an autoimmune process where the body begins to attack the thyroid. Things like giant cell arteritis. Okay? What do we think causes those types of things? What do we think causes Goodpasture's disease, which is which is a problem that we see with the kidneys, right? It's a vasculitis. That's the word I was looking for, by the way. It's a vasculitis that can attack the body. And so there are all these processes that we find now, and the question is, what's causing it? The food that we eat, the ionizing radiation that we sit under, right? The stress that we put ourselves under. Some people would say medication. I'm not going to go there, right? Because there's that's opening up a whole can of worms, right? But there's a war. There's a war. And the war, I think, can be turned in our favor if we follow some basic health principles. You guys knew I was coming there, right? You guys know I was coming there. Some basic health principles. And let's I'm gonna just kind of scroll through here. That's the war that we're talking about, right? So who's the bad guy? Who's the bad guy? Is it the carbs or is it the fats, right? Who's the carbs or the fats? You know, as we watch our weight over the years, right? 1994, 2015, and track that based on or as in correlation with diabetes, we find that as we've gotten bigger as a country, we've also had an increase in diabetes. So if you look at those graphs, right, those diagrams, the lighter we are, the lighter in the top row, the lighter, the less obesity. The darker, the reddish, maroon, whatever color that is, then the more obesity. And if you look at the row below it, it tracks. The more we have, the lighter we are, the less diabetes, and the darker we are, the more diabetes. So as the top row has gotten darker, so has the bottom row. Okay. So we're seeing this. So typical things there, right? That's a hamburger. Some hamburger and fries. Is that the bad guy? And can you spot the carbohydrate in this? Right? Can you spot the carbohydrate? Yeah? Yeah? Let me give you a minute. Where's the carbohydrate? And the answer is they're all carbs. Every single one of them. Right? They all have carbs. Let me say that. They all contain carbohydrates. Some more than others. But if you think about what contains carbohydrate, anything that grows out of the ground or is made from something that grew out of the ground contains carbohydrates. So nobody can fool you again ever about what a carbohydrate is. If it grew out of the ground or it was made from something that grew out of the ground, then it's a carbohydrate. When we talk about diseases of health, diseases of lifestyle, the big concept that comes into play is this idea of metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome. We have increased blood pressure, high blood sugar, excessive body fat, and abnormal cholesterol. And you've probably heard this idea of the body shapes, the apple and the pear. The pear is the body shape that decreases risks of things like high blood or metabolic syndrome. Let me just put it in there, right? So these are people who are heavier at the bottom from the hips down. And people who have the apple shape are those people that are, they have more central obesity. And we believe it's the central obesity that causes a big part of the problem, because the central obesity, not only does it have those fat cells, those adipocytes, but it also produces something called cytokines. And so cytokines are toxic to the rest of the body. It can predispose us to have high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and also to have high blood sugars, because those cytokines, those substances that are being released, then those substances damage the rest of the body. And I think I've shown you, let's see, do I have it here? Hold on a second. I was going to pull up. There it is. This is the fat model, right? The fat model. You guys remember the fat model? Let me see if I can move some stuff around so you can get a better idea. Okay, here it is. So the fat model. So this is 5 pounds of fat. 5 pounds. So sometimes people come into the office and they say, hey, I've only lost 5 pounds. Or I've only lost 2 pounds. Or, right? So boom, there you go. Right? That's 5 pounds. And so this stuff in our body is toxic. This stuff causes cytokines to be released, and those cytokines, let me get myself back together. There we go. And those cytokines can cause issues for us. Okay, so this idea of metabolic syndrome is an idea that encompasses blood pressure, sugars, excess body fat, and of course the cholesterol. Okay, so that's what metabolic syndrome is. And metabolic syndrome is something that we believe that we can change, that we can adjust. And once again, why are we talking about all this stuff? Is because it's all integrated. It all affects the body. Remember, we are working, we're planning. We want to go to the next level. We want to go create the life we want. And if we're going to do that, guess what the vehicle is? Yeah, this body right here. And so taking care of this body, right, is huge. And so we have lots of different ways that we can treat disease processes, lifestyle modification, non-prescription treatment, and then of course prescription. Here with diabetes, the same thing happens. And I'm going to hop over and we're going to talk about this lifestyle modification. So what is lifestyle modification? And there are basically 6 components that you can think about, but there are others, and you can see this broken down in lots of different ways, right? This is just how we do it, right? But there are different ways you can break these into smaller groups, and you can end up, I think I saw one list that had like 21 or 30 different components of lifestyle modification, and they are all within these, right? Within these, but they've been segmented in smaller little chunks, right? So diet. We've been diet. Having a good diet, a well-balanced diet, is huge when it comes to the management of diseases, right? That goes without saying. We just talked about diet as our medicine. What you put into the body affects the body. Now, as I'm treating diabetics, people who have diabetes, one of the first things I tell them, right, is right now, I don't need you to concentrate on your diet. Let me pause there because I hear some of you, I see that, right? I say, I don't need you to concentrate on diet. What I need you to do right now is I need us to manage your blood sugar. Okay? Now, why do I say that? How long do you think it's going to take you to manage your diet? Let's think about it. Okay. If you're out there, right, you've been eating the way you've been eating for how many years? 62 years, 92 years, right? Whatever the number of years is. And so you walk into my office and you are newly diagnosed diabetic. And I say to you, hey, I need you to go home, and within the next 2 weeks, because you're going to see me back in 2 weeks. So people who come to my office, I see them, and I see them between 2 and 4 weeks later. So in the next 2 to 4 weeks, I need you to go home, and everything that you've been doing for the last 72 years, I need you to stop. What do you think happens? Yeah, that doesn't happen. Okay. So as we're treating blood sugar, we also put people in education. And in the education class, I'm in the process of teaching those people what they need to do to maintain, to achieve and maintain long-term change. Notice what we do on that very first day when they walk into my office, right? I don't go back to their house with them like the food police and take all the food that's in their house out of their cabinets. I treat their blood sugar while we work on, hey, this is some stuff that you need to be thinking about. You see what we did? We combined education with immediate treatment. Education with immediate treatment. And the reason I say that is I want you to imagine, right? You walk into if you have a car, right? And you walk over and your car is on fire, right? Blood sugars are high. It's like that for diabetics. Blood sugars are high. Their car is on fire. Right at that moment, you don't really care what caused the fire, right? What do you need to do? You need to put the fire out. And then now let's figure out what caused it and how do we prevent it. So when you walk into my office, when a patient walks into our office and their blood sugars are 300, 400, At that moment, I'm not concerned about what caused the high blood sugar. Their car's on fire. We got to put it out. We need to get the blood sugar down. And then now, let's say, hey, we got to get you into a class so that we can, first of all, figure out what's going on. And then you can begin learning how to effect change in your own life. Get it? Diet. Activity. Activity. I'm going to say to you all, and let me say it, the only way, how many times did I say that? The only way to burn calories is to exercise, y'all. You can't siphon it out. Right? I suppose you can cut it out, right? But exercise. This body that we have is an amazing machine. And it's kind of like having, what kind of car? Somebody tell me a car, right? A Maserati or some muscle car, some hyped up car, and we park it in the garage. That's what we're doing when we're not using this body, right? And I told you last week there's a guy I met who's like a exercise fiend. So I'm gonna have to get him on the show so we can talk. Right? Exercise. The only way to get calories out of the body. And then sleep. Well, let me back up to the exercise for a minute. So food and activity are huge. You saw in the chat, people were talking, or I think G. Albert was talking about Ozempic, right? These are medications that we use to help people with the diet part of their diabetes. It also helps to sensitize their body to insulin and so forth, right? So there are other things that we do, but a big component is the diet. So we put less food in and we exercise more, and guess what? Boom. That's why people are losing weight. And if you're out there and you're saying to yourself, well, I don't want to get dependent on medication, we don't say that for people who have blood sugar problems or cholesterol problems or high blood pressure, right? And if you're in pain, guess what? You go to the doctor and you get medication if the pain is severe enough. But when it comes to weight, we want to convince people that they have a moral failing if they use medication to assist them. It's not a moral failing. It is a disease process. That's why we use medication. Now, just like with blood sugars, as we are treating the disease, we are also teaching people how to do other things to achieve and maintain long-term change. Notice those two things always go together. Education. That's why I say every week when you come on, when I start and when I end, I said we are educating. I'm educating. And then, of course, as we move through lifestyle, we can talk about sleep, the management of stress, depression, pain, and managing inflammation. Okay. Now, notice I ran through those there a little quickly. We're going to have to come back and maybe do a part 2 of this. I think. Right? But that's it, y'all. When we talk about disease, this whole concept of lifestyle modification is huge. Huge, huge, huge. And maybe we come back. Maybe I come back and go through each one of those. Right? Diet, activity, sleep, stress, depression, management of pain and inflammation. If you think that's a good idea, put yes, yes. Push yes, 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 yes. Okay. All right. So let's see. What do we got? So G. Albert says, blah, 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 they are all carbs. Yeah, they're all carbs. Yes. So G. Albert, thank you for putting that drop. No, Dean said that. They're all carbs. G. Albert says, noodles, bread, question mark, cucumber. Yes. So they have carbs. Now here's that, and G. Albert, I'm going to use that. You didn't ask this question, but I'm gonna use it as a question. And here's the question that people ask: aren't those free carbs, or aren't those good carbs? Right? So wait a minute. A cucumber has carbs? The answer is yes, they do. Are those free carbs? The answer is no. And I'll come back and talk about that in a minute. And aren't those good carbs? And the answer to that last one is there are no such thing as good and bad carbs. They are carbs. Okay, now I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, for saying that last part. Okay, so let's go back. I'll say, does a cucumber have carbs? Yes, it does. Okay. There's fiber in there. There's water in there. There are nutrients in there. So it has carbs. Are those free carbs? And the answer I gave was no. And the reason I give that is this. Do you know that it is possible to eat enough cucumber to cause your blood sugar to rise to 100, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 170, 180. Now, you got to eat a lot of cucumber. But that's the point. It is cumulative. Right? So people say, hey, the cucumber is free carb. And so the the lettuce is a free carb. The tomato is a free carb. Maybe those pieces of apples I put in that salad, those are free carbs. And after a while, those free carbs add up to 45, 50 carbs. Now, what is beneficial and why we say it is better to eat the salad that has carbs in it compared to that potato? You know why we say that? Because the salad and those carbs, the things that have carbs in the salad, it also brings in nutrients and it brings in water and it brings in fiber. Okay. So I want you to get the entire picture. It's not that they don't have carbohydrates in them. It's that there are other things in them that we think are beneficial. And is the carb in a potato better than a carb in a salad, right? Potato versus salad. Now, a lot of people out there, you're going to argue, right? Those carbs are carbs, y'all. They're going to raise the blood sugar. Maybe not as fast and maybe not as high, but they're going to raise the blood sugar. Okay? So when you think about eating the carbs, I want you to have a complete picture of why we say that a salad is better than eating a baked potato. It's not because they don't have carbohydrates. It's not because the salad doesn't have carbohydrates. But there are so many other things in the salad that we think are beneficial. Okay, so G. Albert, I know you didn't intend for that conversation, but yeah. Dean Cloud says, yes, you educate and you teach us to understand. Definitely. Thank you. G. Albert says, Gwen and I are monitoring and managing our blood sugars and blood pressure, no meds. We are also keeping logs. Yes. Anything that you want to change, you've got to track. So thank you for saying that. Anything you want to change, you got to track. You have me closer than I've ever been. My A1C is now 6.1. Dean, dude. I love it. And then G. Albert says we're supposed to sleep I guess 4 hours in general is not enough. My mind is constantly running. Guess that's like the exercise that you're talking about. Man, let me tell you something. Yeah, so we recommend at least 7 hours of sleep. Okay, I'm gonna pause. Because sometimes it's hard to get 7 hours of sleep, right? And as I'm telling you this, there are times when I am up. Like if I've got something going, something I'm working on, right? I'm up late, and I'm not even going to tell you the time when I'm up late, right? And sometimes I go to work, and my team will say to me, "What time did you go to sleep?" Right? But 7 hours we recommend at least, because remember, during sleep, our body rejuvenates. It recuperates. It integrates. All the things that we learn, all the things that we saw, and all the thoughts, they're happening in there. There are hormones that are developing while we're sleeping. Guys, testosterone, right? When you get good sleep, yeah, buddy. Right? So a lot of stuff. So sleep. My mind is racing. Now, in terms of the mind racing, I love that. And once, you guys are taking me everywhere. So one of the things I do at the end of the day, and I've talked about bookending. So I have a routine in the morning. I have a routine at night. And at night, my routine there to get the things out of my mind is I jot them down. I put them in my journal. I have an electronic journal that I use, right? It's called Day One. And in combination with Notion, right? So those two things I use, and they are my to-do lists, electronic journal, so on and so forth. And I take them out of my head, I put them in the journal, and when I do that, they're not constantly going through my mind. One of the reasons that sometimes we have that process is that our brain thinks that we're going to forget it. And in order to not forget it, it keeps repeating it over and over and over and over and over. But if you take it out and put it somewhere else, put it on a written journal, put it in an electronic journal, then you, a lot of times that will not be the case. It won't continue to float around in your mind. Okay. And then Dean says, yes. So I think Dean is responding to the question, do you think it would be a good idea to do a show on each of the lifestyle modification? He says, yes. Thank you, Dean. Thank you for saying that. Awesome. All right. So I love this show. You guys had a lot of questions tonight, a lot of comments. I really appreciate that. This is a great time for us to do our thought of the day. So let's head over there right now. All right, and our thought of the day is a question once again. What is your backup plan? Pause for effect. What is your backup plan? So we are so good at identifying goals. We are so dreams, right? So ideas. We want to go somewhere. And we're good at sitting down, and we're good at coming up with SMART goals, right? We talked about that SMART goal in one of our shows. SMART. We are good at implementing those. But a lot of times we don't have a backup plan. We don't have a plan for if things don't work. We don't have a plan for if things don't go as quickly as we thought. We don't have a plan sometimes when we achieve the goal. How do we maintain what we've achieved? What is your backup plan? As you are moving forward in your life, we have insurance policies that we get life insurance, we get health insurance, we get car insurance, we have house insurance. All those insurances are really kind of backup plans if something happens, right? So the question is, what is your insurance for the thing that you say is the thing that you want to do, the person you want to be? What if it doesn't work? What if you need to pivot? What if you need to bounce back? Do you have a plan? And part of SMART, I think they should add in SMART goals, we should have a process as part of the SMART goal for evaluation, and we should have a backup or insurance, because we're putting all of our energies, all of our thought power, all of our emotional power, our relationships. Sometimes we're not sleeping as much as we should. Sometimes we put our health on the back burner for this thing that we're going after. Do you have insurance? Do you have a backup plan? So what is your backup plan? My challenge to you is to go back, look at those SMART goals, and come up with a plan. Come up with some insurance. What are you going to do? How are you going to proceed? What resources do you need to bring to bear to achieve this goal that you're doing? But if something happens, what do? We don't want to stop. So come up with a backup plan. And that is our thought for today. Oops. All right, so you guys heard my iPad fall over there. All right. Man, I'm so excited. I'm so excited that you guys are here. He says, let's see, what do we got? I think I saw something in there. G. Albert says, good to know about the journal. Good to know about the journal. Yes, let me get you up there, G. Albert. I'm gonna pop over the screen. There we go. I can put you up there. He says, don't have a backup plan. Dean says he doesn't have a backup plan. G. Albert says, neither do I. And he said prayer. And Dean says, yes, prayer. Now, I want you guys, let me hop on that, right? Let me hop on that. Because remember, right, prayer is a huge one, and I love that. But we're admonished to watch and pray, y'all. Right? Watch and pray. And the watch part, the prayer part, we all get. We all say that. But the watch part is to be vigilant. Right? So it says, watch and pray that you fall not into, right, temptation. So that means pray for it, but you need to be putting some stuff in place. You need to have your eyes open. You need to be looking around to see who's out there that may come after you. Right? So thank you for the pray part, but let's get the watching as well. All right. So guys, thank you for being there. Let me hop over. Actually, let me grab my iPad, which fell over a little while ago, and let me get it back on my stand, and let's get you. Remember to get back to our YouTube channel, and let me pop that over here. There we go. That one. Yeah, there we go. Get back to the YouTube channel, and then if I can get over here really quickly, make sure you also get over to our website, because the website, that's Dwayne Wood MD. Dwayne Wood MD. Let's see. How about that? Yeah, there we go. So Dwayne Wood MD, I want you to make sure that you get there, and on the website you'll see our blog, and some beautiful things out there that we're doing, time blocking, boundaries, make 2023 the year you get unstuck. We've done some things on thyroid cancer and mindset and fear and positive balance sheet, living authentically, powerful strategies to overcome things in your life, the power of habit and transforming your life, discovering your superpowers. Yes. Right. So lots of stuff that's out there on our blog. If you know someone who doesn't do YouTube, and if you are traveling and you want to listen to our shows, we do have those also on our podcast. And it's called Do You Know with Dr. Dwayne Wood. A lot of times we are working in our lives and we feel like we just need to do something different. We're not quite sure what it is. We're not quite sure where we need to be. But if you would like to process that, if you would like to get unstuck, if you'd like to work with us, if you'd like to come for me to come alongside you, you can sign up for our program. I'd love to do that. And if you're out there, and I've said this before, we did not get all the way into this, but this is something I definitely want to do coming up in our next season, if not this season for the end of this year, but beginning of next year, is to actually do some coaching online, coaching on the air. Right. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and drop us a line, dwood or coach at dwaynewoodmd.com, coach at dwaynewoodmd.com. You can find us on all social media platforms. If you get out there, you'll see we are Dwayne Wood MD. And let's see, there it is. This should pop up all of our social media platforms, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, or Twitter. You can get on there and we can see that. Okay. Well, anyway, I won't keep you longer, but thank you for being here, everybody. Dean and Albert, G. Albert, thank you for coming through. I appreciate it. Everyone, good night. We'll see you at our next show next week. Bye-bye.